Well, just before we get the third edition of the College Football Playoff Committee rankings, it'll be sandwiched in between a pair of really good basketball games, and this has become a tradition. Kentucky, now one of the teams that will take the spotlight at the Mecca of basketball, Madison Square Garden, as they face Tom Izzo and the Michigan State Spartans in a top 20 battle at MSG. Kentucky, an early favorite in this one. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. Patrick, this has been one of my favorite parts about what they've done with the committee rankings. They sandwich it right in between a pair of really big basketball games, and it always seems to me that Kentucky, Duke, Michigan State, all the blue bloods happen to be a part of it.
Yeah, and it's sandwiched in between two really good games, not only Kentucky, Michigan State tonight, but also Kansas, Duke that will follow after at Madison Square Garden. So a couple of games that definitely will have the eyes of not only college basketball fans, but football fans alike because of the fact that the rankings will be sandwiched in between the two games. I believe the MSU Kentucky tip-off is 5:30 Central, 6:30 Eastern. So right after that should be when, or probably at halftime actually.
Yes,
because they usually come out at 7:30 Eastern.
Yes.
So yeah, probably right around halftime.
Yeah,
will be when the rankings come out, and we'll get to what we think about the rankings later. But first, we'll talk about some basketball here. It feels like, and we'll have Ian Kress from Lansing on here in a minute, but it feels like this year Tom Izzo is coming for vengeance against the SEC after falling to Auburn. I didn't realize the Auburn loss was the first loss to an SEC team in the tournament for him. So should be interesting. Obviously got that big one over Arkansas last week. But, should be a really good matchup tonight.
Absolutely. And Michigan State, credit them for scheduling a pair of SEC powerhouses, both Arkansas as well as Kentucky. Of course, like you mentioned, Auburn played them last year in the Elite Eight. Michigan State got the win there, and Coach Izzo and company will look to get a little revenge, as you said, coming out of that game in Madison Square Garden. And that is exactly where we're headed right now here, Patrick.
Yeah, let's bring on Ian here from New York City. Let's go, Ian.
What's up, man?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, doing well.
I hear you. Big one tonight. Obviously, you cover Michigan State really well. Tom Izzo and company. We just mentioned it moments ago. Tom Izzo had not lost to an SEC team in the big dance, and then seemingly got a bit of revenge when they got a big win over Arkansas, and now Kentucky lines the floor this year. What do you make of what Tom Izzo's been able to do with this team, with this roster here in the early parts of the season?
Yeah, it's kind of similar to last year's group. It's not the most talented Tom Izzo team that you've seen, but last year's team was able to win the Big Ten by 3 games and then go all the way to the Elite Eight before falling to Auburn. So I think on paper, they're probably not the most talented. They don't have a lot of guys who are probably going to go in the first round of the draft, but at the same time, the Tom Izzo basketball, they like to play tough, they're physical, and I think it's going to be a heck of a game tonight at Madison Square Garden.
This has been a really cool tradition, being able to put marquee college basketball games in these big-time arenas. Coach Izzo's been around the block before. He knows how to take teams deep into the NCAA tournament, and I think that he understands from a philosophical perspective, it's games like this that'll help get his team ready. What is his mindset when it comes to these neutral site games in these big-time arenas as he gets his team ready for a very long grind throughout the regular season and then the postseason?
Yeah, it's typical Tom Izzo to have a tough non-conference schedule. You know, they played Arkansas at home, and I think if that game was played anywhere else outside of East Lansing, Michigan State probably loses that game, but it's still a good test. They played at UConn for an exhibition game, and that's a game that Tom Izzo credits the Arkansas win to, just because it gave them a real opportunity to see what they're like in an environment that they're not used to that early. And now it's kind of going to be the same thing. Neutral site, not sure what the fans going to look like in terms of who's rooting more for MSU or Kentucky, or maybe Kansas and Duke fans come in and root for one of the other teams. So I don't know how they'll handle that, but I do know they're battle tested early in the season, which is pretty common for a Tom Izzo-led team.
Ian, I know Tom Izzo, after the last game, talked about how he doesn't like to talk about trap games. He doesn't believe in trap games. But what did you make of the performance of the Spartans that game? I know they didn't really shoot it from the line that well.
Yeah, they're not shooting that well from three or free throws so far in the season, but they're working on that. He's pretty confident that they'll be able to turn that around. They didn't play a great second half against San Jose State, so he kind of got a little upset with his leaders that game, and he said after in the post-game press conference that if they play like that tonight, they're going to get killed by Kentucky. So he was not too confident on Thursday, but then we talked to him on Sunday, and he said that they had two of the better practices that they've had in a few years. So he kind of goes back and forth with this group. It seems like he's pretty confident. It's just a matter of if they're able to hit their shots in a big-time environment.
I'm not sure how much you're able to talk to Coach right before each game, before they scout each opponent, but what does he think of what this Kentucky team is? I know it's very still early in the season, but they have also one marquee game underneath their belts, a loss to Louisville. But what are some of the things that you're hearing as far as crosstalk goes as they scout their opponent tonight at MSG?
Yeah, that's one of the nice things with Tom Izzo. He's very media friendly. So we typically will talk to him before every game and then obviously the post-game stuff. So we do have an idea of what he thinks heading into this one. He knows Kentucky's a very deep team. I think they're injured. They have a few injuries right now, Kentucky, so I'm not sure how that'll affect them. But he does view them as a little more talented than Arkansas. You know, they're not as young as Arkansas is. Arkansas had a few freshmen come into that environment at the Breslin Center that was probably shocking to them. But Kentucky, they have a few veteran guys, and they're deep. So I think that's something that Michigan State's looking at that could be a problem, especially if, you know, the bench of Kentucky is able to outplay the bench of Michigan State.
Absolutely. I'll get into more individual basketball stuff here in a minute, but I thought something a big picture because Tom Izzo is really good friends with Nick Saban. Of course, their time at Michigan State goes all the way back, I guess, to the 90s or so. And we've seen Nick Saban be very vocal about the state of college football and some of the things that are going right, but a lot of the things that are not going right. Tom Izzo was also very vocal a couple of weeks ago about a pair of players who were able to play after playing a little bit of time in basically semi-pro, actually professional basketball, not the NBA. As college athletics, you know, reshapes itself and the NCAA and the courts get involved, how much do you think that Tom Izzo will be able to stay in the game and be able to make his voice heard as much as he does? Because I think he's a great ambassador for everything, but also think that, man, this might be wearing on his patience a little bit.
Yeah, he's said it before. He's almost too stubborn to leave the game, just because even though it is changing, he doesn't like it. Obviously, he doesn't like the transfer portal or NIL, but he does know that those are the things that are going on right now, and he just has to adapt to it. You know, they've used the transfer portal. They're still recruiting at a high level. You know, and a lot of programs are not recruiting high school recruits, which Michigan State is, and because of it, at the moment, they have one of the top, I think some recruiting experts have it as the top recruiting class in the country right now. So they're still recruiting the high school level at a high level and using some good NIL money there to get guys to come to the program. But I do think, you know, I don't think he's going to be a guy that brings in a G League player. I think that's something where he'll probably put his foot down. He's okay with the transfer portal. That's just what it is. But I think something like that, if it comes to that, then maybe you start to see him phase out a little bit. But 70 years old right now, and he's still going strong, a lot of energy, and you'll probably see it tonight for sure.
Absolutely. Going back to this game tonight, is it MSG? I want to ask you a personal question because I don't know. Have you covered a game there? Are you excited? What are some of the things about the mystique of this arena, this game, and then being able to have the Spartans in-house?
Yeah, I've never been to Madison Square Garden, so I'm looking forward to that. This is only my second time in New York, so it was kind of cool. Just walked around a little bit in the morning to see, you know, the big time areas, Times Square, all that good stuff. But yeah, I'm looking forward to being inside Madison Square Garden, see why they call it the world's most famous arena. I think there was like a WWE match there last night because it was pretty crowded.
I saw Cam Scattergood just like knock someone over with his broken ankle or whatever.
So there's a lot of people already downtown. I'm like, man, it's a Monday night, and you got all these people already out here. So yeah, it truly is a city that never sleeps. But it's been cool, and I'm looking forward to being able to be inside there.
Absolutely. We got a chance to hear from Coach Izzo, taking away some positives from their last game as they prepare for the Wildcats.
God, I love you guys. I'm ticked off, and you're finding positives. This is a reverse. This is different than normal, isn't it? There were some, and I appreciate you asking that. The positives were we out rebounding by 20. The positives are we had, 20 25 assists on 28 baskets. That's a big positive. The positive, to be honest with you, we got to the free throw line 25 times. That's a positive. The positive is we only had 9 turnovers. There were a bunch of positive. The positive, I had 2 guys. I mean, I don't know if I've had a player get 18 rebounds. Have I, Jack? You would know that. 18 rebounds, 17 points is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I mean, but he didn't guard like he needed to guard. And to be honest with you, didn't hit shots that I think he can hit and make. He was a bear on the boards, and I didn't think some other guys were as good on the boards. I thought they did a better job. So those are 5 or 6 really impressive things that they'll get credit for. It just won't be tonight.
Ian, you talked about a little bit that Tom Izzo after the last game wasn't really pleased with his leaders, some of those leaders being Jeremy Fears and Cohen Carr. What have you made from their play to start the season?
Yeah, we'll start with Fears. You know, he's the guy that Tom Izzo does view as the leader of this team. He's very vocal, sometimes almost too vocal, but they're very similar in a lot of ways, Tom and Jeremy, and that's what Tom likes. He always says, you know, the head of the snake, if it's on and it's going, then the whole body's going to follow. But if the head of the snake dies, basically the whole body just follows. So basically he knows Jeremy Fears is a key part to Michigan State's success this year. He's leading the Big Ten in assists per game right now. He's coming off a performance against San Jose State on Thursday where he had a career-high 15 points. So his game is progressing. He's a redshirt sophomore now, so his game is really improving. And, you know, he's going to be a veteran guy that's going to really help bring the energy early in this game. And when you talk about energy for Michigan State, no better player than Cohen Carr to bring the house down at any point in the game, to really spark the offense, to get the crowd going if they're Michigan State fans. And, you know, I've been covering Cohen now for 3 years, and I never get tired of seeing him dunk. It's incredible.
No question about it. One of the big things before let you go is I want to talk a little football here for a second because it's a really interesting dynamic in the Big Ten overall. Of course, Ohio State, the number 1 team, but there is some chatter that if Michigan can come through and win a game there towards the end of the season, especially that big one there at the end of the year, they could back their way into the college football playoff. How are Michigan fans kind of shaping what this might look like in the process of being able to get 2, 3, maybe even 4 teams in that college football playoff?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't looked pretty at times for Michigan. I mean, you looked last week against Northwestern. They have 5 turnovers, missed 2 field goals, and they still found a way to win the game. And so right now, I think they're on track to make the playoff if, you know, they're able to win out. You know, they beat Ohio State, the number 1 team in the country. I think that'll really help boost their resume. Right now, that some of their only losses are on the road at Oklahoma and then on the road at USC. So those aren't like terrible losses.
Right.
But there's been a lot of times where just Michigan has not looked exactly like a playoff team. It's kind of looked a little ugly at times. And that's just what happens with a true freshman quarterback like Bryce Underwood. He's going to make mistakes. He's learning. And I think if they are able to beat Ohio State, then I think they would be in the college football playoff.
Absolutely. Ian Kress joining us from New York City there in the Big Apple. Kentucky's about a 4.5-point favorite the last I saw. Do you have a prediction about what goes on in Madison Square tonight?
Oh, that's tough. I do think, I kind of feel like Kentucky will win. I just feel like Michigan State typically doesn't do well inside of Madison Square Garden. I think it's like 5-13 all time with Izzo as the head coach. So I do lean Kentucky, but, you know, we'll see how if Michigan State is able to hit some shots, then they'll have a very good chance to win the game. But I'd go Kentucky.
Awesome stuff. I know you're very, very busy, and I really appreciate you taking your time out here to join us on Southeast Sports Plus.
Yeah, thanks, guys.